Welcome to the exciting rebirth of Superstar, featuring choose your membership rate as low as just $3 a month. At Superstar, you get expanded, exclusive videoscopes each and every week, unlimited access to special horoscopes, class passes for Synchronicity University, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space. I look forward to meeting you there. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of January 10, 2021. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological week, and actually it is a very powerful astrological month. I know that there has been intensity, and there is going to be some of that this week as well. But what I can say is we are going to end the month on what is called the luckiest day of the year. That's actually the 29th, so not exactly the end, but that is the direction in which we are moving. And within this time, even with many important but perhaps heightened alignments, we are going to have moments of healing, moments of understanding. And that is part of what is transpiring now and even into next month also. I am going to start with a little bit of a story recently in my Age of Aquarius video. I'll link to it in the description below. I spoke about the late, great Jonathan Caner. Like millions of us, and many of us who found the path of astrology, he was imperative. He was such an important part of that path. He passed away a few years ago, and his work continues with his nephew at the same website, caner.com. I discovered him like in the 90s, and it really was like every day I got this mini astrology lesson through him. And I, like many others, just loved his work so much. So one of the bits of history that I learned a while back with Jonathan Caner is that he had an experience that really shaped him, of many that he shared in interviews over the course of his very extensive career. And one of the experiences he had was it was kind of in the first years of him writing daily horoscopes. And someone had read one of his daily horoscopes, and they thought that that column gave them permission to kill themselves. And that person did commit suicide. And Jonathan was so moved by that. He articulated that that was such a turning point for him because he realized the power that astrologers have, the power of our words, the privilege that we have to reach people on such a deep level, that from then on, he was not only much more careful with what it was that he wrote, but he had like all these systems in place to have several people proofread his work to make sure that there was nothing that could be interpreted in a way that would give someone permission to do harm towards themselves or towards another. Now, it is very recently in human history that astrology and religion, or astrology and spirituality, has been separated, and even that wasn't an easy separation. So with the discovery of Uranus in the late 1700s, that brought with it this split. Astrology became something separate, and spirit and mind became something else. Before then, human beings operated with this very integrated worldview, what was called the symbolic mind. And so Uranus gets discovered, the entire worldview that we have gets turned on its head. We start to, as humanity, view the world much more literally rather than symbolically, and astrology gets demonized in this worldview. It really has nowhere to go. It is ridiculed. It is driven out of Western universities. And then it was with the discovery of Neptune and this hyper spirituality, which was a response to hyper scientism, that astrology found a new home as a spiritual practice. But up until the late 1700s, it really was the providence of religious people, the priests, the gurus, who were the ones who were the keepers of astrology. And then with the New Age movement, it became something much more independent. It starts to become something more bohemian. And then with the discovery of Pluto, it starts to become a whole lot more psychological. And I think my belief is that somewhere very deep in our psyche, in our collective unconscious, we still see the astrologer as holding some insight into sacred wisdom. We see them as the intermediaries of divine energies. And I think that's why when it is that you go and have a reading done, and I've had this experience actually not even that long ago, you have this moment, this little bit of a moment, right, where you're like, please say something good. You better tell me something good. Tell me that everything's going to be amazing. Because on some level, we still have that sense that this person is giving voice to what you want to call fate, what you want to call divine providence, even though we now can approach astrology differently and we can say that this is a tool of self-empowerment, of self-awareness, a blueprint for the psyche, as Dane Rudyard called it. We still, on a very unconscious level, perhaps still have that sense that there's something sacred going on here, or something divine or touched by the divine. And that actually may be part of the resistance that some people might have to astrology as well. But putting that aside for a moment, I take with great responsibility what I do, and it matters to me deeply. Like, the reason that I do what I do is to affirm love and wisdom in the world. But I also strive not to be Pollyanna. I strive to speak truth to the symbols as I see them, and to honor the symbols as well. And so there's this delicate balance between not wanting to say something that would give someone permission to do something that may not be healthy, that might hurt other people or hurt themselves, but also wanting to honor what could be playing out here. And so as part of that learning, which I'm still engaged in, I felt this week, as I saw events unfold, that last week I could have done better. Like, that was my honest feeling. And there was fear on my part as I looked at the symbol, but I have contemplated very deeply, and I've thought very deeply throughout this week, how maybe I could have found a way to give voice and interpret the symbols in a way that was still loving, that was still empowering, that affirmed the wisdom, while still mentioning out or speaking of the things that were going to be challenging. And so I'm going to keep trying to do better, and I'll keep trying to find that balance. But that is a part of my journey. And so some reflections that I have thinking about last week. I remember last week looking at Mars in particular. And we've had Mars spend an unusually long time in the sign of Aries. And Aries is its home sign. And when a planet is in the sign of its rulership, it is made stronger. It is able to flow freer. You know, this is its home sign. Just like when you're at home and you can be more yourself, you can really relax and let loose. That is what a planet does when it is in its home sign as well. And I considered the fact that we had just come out of an extended Mars retrograde season. Mars normally spends about 7 weeks in a sign, had just spent 7 months in the sign of Aries, in its home sign. And with the retrograde, energies can be heightened, but they also turn inward. And when they turn inward, it gives us an opportunity to personalize that energy, to use it as a force of self-honesty, self-knowledge, self-transformation. But that isn't what always happens. Sometimes that energy turns inward and it stews. It just goes around and around. And what happens, like a cauldron, right? It can build energy. And I remember looking at the sky last week and looking at Mars at 29 degrees, anaretic degree. The very last degree of a given sign is something that I call a point of culmination, a concentration. It is the culmination of all the degrees leading up to it, the very last degree, the anaretic degree. And so the energy is going to be especially heightened. And these are the types of words that I use. But it has also long been called, the anaretic degree has long been called the crisis degree as well, a point of crisis, which is one way in which the energy can come forward. And given that this was Aries, an energy that can feel urgent and angry and spontaneous, given that Mars was at 29 degrees, I feel like some of the strife and the very sad events that we saw this week are encapsulated very well with Mars at 29 degrees of Aries. And I remember last week when I was recording, and I have Mercury retrograde in my chart. I don't like to talk so much about myself. That's part of what I love about what I do, is that I get to talk about the world. I get to talk about you. I get to be of service, and I get to put myself kind of out of the way. And a part of the reason is also because I do have Mercury retrograde in my chart, and I love the edit feature for that reason. I love to be able to say something and then decide afterwards, okay, I don't think this is going to work. I think I should remove this. And there have been times when I knew I should remove something and I didn't, and then I didn't like the outcome, and times when I was glad I removed something, and then sometimes not so glad I removed something. But last week I had begun to say something around this 29 degree Mars, and I ended up cutting it out because I felt like I didn't want to give anybody permission to do something that could have been harmful. But I think that in not allowing myself to say it, I missed an opportunity to actually express ways in which we can empower ourselves and be empowered. And so what empowers us is commitment to higher principles of love and wisdom. What empowers us is the commitment to take whatever we're feeling, whatever energy is there, and to first search our own hearts, to create clear intentions to our actions. These are ways in which we can integrate energies that may be difficult for many people out there, but to use it as a force for good. And so, yes, there has been this very jarring moment, which can happen with such a strong Mars. But now moving forward, Mars has changed signs. Mars has moved into the sign of Taurus, and Taurus is much less spontaneous, much less erratic, certainly, but it is plotting. It is methodical. And so we saw not a lot of clarity or clear planning recently, but now as we move forward, and in particular, I'm looking at this week, I'm looking at the fact that Wednesday is a huge day. I feel almost like everything else this week is sort of like just to focus in on what's happening on Wednesday, the lead up to it, the heightenedness of it. We have 3 very big celestial events taking place on Wednesday. And of course, you want to give or take a day on either side, depending on where you are on the planet. But one of them includes Mars, and this is Mars squaring Saturn. And then, of course, to give you a heads up, the astrology of the month, next week, we're going to have Mars meeting Uranus. Mars meeting Uranus is the most surprising day of the year. You could say it's the most shocking day as well, and it actually happens once every 2 years. I'm calling it the most surprising day of the year. And that can go in either direction, but it is an energy of extremes. And I see us building towards that. And I feel hesitant to even mention it, the ways in which this energy can come forward. But I am so hopeful right now that because something within you as part of your karmic journey is called to be here in this moment, that my hope is that on some level, there is a commitment to love and wisdom. There is a commitment to self-knowledge for self-ownership. And with the energy this week, with Mars squaring Saturn on Wednesday, and it isn't just about that, but let's just start there. This can represent a few different things. Restriction is a part of it. Frustration is a part of it as well. This can also represent anger that really feels like it doesn't have a healthy expression. Mars is the energy of the sacred masculine. So when we think about feminine and masculine, both have a sacred side, a sacred face, and a toxic face. And sacred and masculine energies are not about who's a boy or who's a girl. It is about understanding that one way to order the world and to order the universe is to look at it from a perspective of duality. Just like we have hate, we can have love, we have fear, we have love, we have anger, we have love. Love seems to be the counter to many of the other emotions that can take us in a very different direction. And so as I look at this energy, it can play out in a couple different ways, but one is that the sacred masculine is seeking to find an outlet, doesn't really know where to go, doesn't really know how to express itself. Mars is not strong in the sign of Taurus because Mars is the ancient ruler of Scorpio. Scorpio is opposite the sign of Taurus. So that is some of the rationale to that. It's rooted in an understanding called essential dignities, which is a traditional astrological understanding. But this is where the energy of Mars becomes even more unlikely to find a healthy outlet or to figure out what its outlet is going to be. And so many of what have been outlets for masculine energy and for sacred masculine energy, well, we look at the ancient Greeks, right? They had athletics, they had gymnasiums, they glorified their warriors. And whether it is sports, whether it's the gym, other physical activities, these have been, in the modern world, the spaces where people connect to masculine energy and, in the best sense, sacred masculine energy. And a lot of these spaces are closed right now. I was speaking to my aunt recently, my Aunt Shireen. I always mention her in my books, in the acknowledgements, because she really is one of the most important people who is part of putting me on the path that I am on today. She is, in her own right, a spiritual teacher, a life coach. And so my aunt was, and one of the lessons she taught me was that anger is sacred. Anger is the energy of change. But it's what you do with it that matters, right? If you don't do something with it, then it can become very destructive. And I think that's part of what may be coming forward now. And I think that's part of, and this distinction is something that may be coming forward now for people as well, and that we may be seeing in others also. With Mars squaring Saturn, that very energy of frustration needs an outlet, but doesn't really feel like it has an outlet. And so then what happens to it? And this is where we, as people who like to observe the sky, who like to understand the wisdom of the cosmos, actually, I think have an advantage, because we're able to recognize and see the symbol for what it is and decide how we're going to direct it. And there are all kinds of healthy ways to direct this energy. But we all have it, and we all need to find healthy ways to direct our Mars energy. And Saturn, in some ways, is also sort of our higher morality. It is the inner parent. It is the part of us that understands the right thing to do. And I think that that understanding is also going to be coming forward now. How is it that we can find healthy but also responsible ways to direct this energy that ultimately is asking for change? It's asking for transformation. And very often what's wanting to change is how we feel. Earlier today in my Synchronicity University class on the second house, I was providing the example of someone that I used to know many years ago. And this person had a Pisces rising. And so when you met this person, they were just sweet and calm, and there was just a gentleness to them. But then you had Aries on the second house cusp, and the money-making pursuit that they decided to embrace was being a stockbroker. And this is like, we're going way back. We're going back to the 90s. The stockbrokers back then, I don't know what they're like now. I don't know a lot about that world. But back then, pretty aggressive, very aggressive. Had a way of expressing and cultivated the spirit of even bullying, you can say. It was that type of energy, that type of environment, and I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand how somebody who seems this gentle would thrive in that, would want that, but that was the path that they chose for themselves. So there was a little period of time there in the middle where from the period that I knew them for about 4 years, there was this little period of time where they were unemployed and wasn't working. And it was during that period of time, I remember this person getting into bar fights, like a couple of them. And it made no sense. Like, I was like, who is this person? How are they getting into bar fights? It just doesn't make sense. The person I know wouldn't be doing this. Well, the thing is that what was happening was that they had directed their Mars energy, their sacred masculine energy, into their work and the profession that they chose, the money-making prospect that they chose. But when they didn't have that, when they felt stress, when they needed an outlet, they didn't have one. And so what happened? Well, it came out in these very spontaneous bursts, getting frustrated with people for no reason. And I was contemplating this more deeply earlier today, and I was thinking about how one of the things that couples counselors will tell you is that sometimes what happens when couples who fight, often, it is rooted in stress that they feel. So it is about that sacred masculine energy. Again, regardless, doesn't matter if you're male or female by gender. We all have both, sacred masculine, sacred feminine. And when it is that the sacred masculine isn't being honored, that fighting spirit isn't being honored, then it'll come out in these erratic ways. And one way is like arguing with people who are close to you, who you know aren't going to go anywhere. These people already have brought the sacred feminine of acceptance, right? Of receptivity, of creating a safe space. That's part of the sacred feminine energy. And so that is already there. But now there needs to be that counterbalance of sacred masculine, but instead it's coming forward in ways that are not enlightened. And so the key really is to figure out that life has stressors. How are you going to channel those stressors? And that is part of the path of wisdom. I think that's part of the path of cultivating wisdom and being a more loving person in the world to the best of our ability. But of course, we're never going to be perfect in that. So here is this opportunity to cultivate restraint, to cultivate perspective, to think about the long range effect, the long range goal, and to channel our energy wisely. And we have the power to do that. And so this energy will perfect right around Wednesday, but that isn't the only thing that's happening here. We are also going to have Uranus direct. So this is a very big deal, having Uranus direct. Uranus went retrograde way back towards the end of August. That's how long Uranus has been retrograde. And whenever a planet is changing directions, its energies are thought to be more heightened. It is thought to be more visible or closer to the earth. And so its energies are especially strong. But when we have a planet going stationary direct, standing still in the sky, moving forward, it truly is as if an energy that we didn't even realize was held back or stuck in some way becomes free. With Uranus, that becomes 20, 100 times more likely, because this is the energy of surprise and epiphany and insight and revelations. It is an energy that is about freedom. Each of us has our own very meaningful understanding of what freedom looks like to each of us. I know that to me, it is such a very strong and important priority in my life. I think about how many choices and decisions I've made in my life and how so many of them were rooted in that desire for freedom, for autonomy, for authenticity. But I understand that freedom can mean different things to different people. With Uranus going forward, whatever that means to you is going to come right to the surface. However it is that you understand that, how you live that, and the determination to live that is going to come right to the surface at this time. And finding outlets to express that part of us that needs to feel free, that needs to feel independent, that needs to feel autonomous is going to come forward. But as an energy, like just in and of itself, yeah, this is surprising. This is a shocking energy. And remember, it is going to be next week, right around the 20th is when. So not even late into the week, right? In the early to mid part of next week is when we are going to have Mars meeting Uranus in the sky. So between now and then, Mars is moving, inching closer and closer to that Uranus. Uranus strong in the sky all month. His energy is heightened. So that sense of things being unpredictable is one way to put it, right? It is predictable in how unpredictable it is. But feeling erratic, feeling as if there are surprises. Sometimes very strong surprises become part of this. Now, one of the greatest surprises, of course, is what you realize about yourself. What you didn't realize was in you until it came out. There's a line from True Blood, one of my shows that I like to watch in my own life, one of my guilty pleasures, if you will. It's a vampire show, not a big deal, but yeah, I like it. And in this show, there's this line in it that Sam Merlotte says, sometimes you don't know what's in you until sometimes it just pops out. And I have found that to be very true. Sometimes you just don't know. And it is a week like this that may surprise us in what pops out from within us. And this, of course, is the energy of change, where it is that we are determined to change, what it is that is no longer acceptable to us in our own lives. But the key, again, is to channel this energy in ways that help us to get to our higher aim. And at least with this week, we do have Mars connecting with Saturn, which I think can help to balance some of the energies. But this is going to be a key characteristic of 2021. That sense of figuring out the right places and spaces to advance and move towards what freedom looks like to us, but still to be responsible. And to not just do it for its own sake, to not just have a performance of it, but to have a longer range goal in mind. I had shared something a couple of weeks back about freedom, and this is a topic very near and dear to my heart. And somebody, made a beautiful comment. I wish I had it up right now, but they said something to the effect that, you may not realize it, but it actually can come across as offensive, the way that you describe freedom and how other people perceive freedom. And I understand that, and that's never my intention, to be offensive in any way. I'm just not wired that way. But I thought about that actually quite deeply. And I thought about how freedom can be something that often comes through responsibility, not from responsibility, but what are we actually responsible for and to is part of the question. But I also thought about an example in my own life. And again, like I said, I don't like to talk about myself very much, but I am going to do it today because I already did it once. I'll do it again. My brother and my sister-in-law, they are huge tattoo aficionados. I think my brother didn't even get his first tattoo until his Saturn return. So he was like in his late 20s or maybe 30 when he got his very first tattoo. But they love it. To them, tattoos are an expression of their authentic self. It is what it means to truly be themselves in the world. And they know a lot about the history, but they also go a lot to get tattooed as well. So that is something that represents not just freedom, not just individuality, but authenticity to them. To have their tattoos is an expression of their authentic self. And I respect that. And I love them. They're amazing people. Absolutely. Very close to my heart. And people who inspire me so much in their own ways. But for me, it was different. Most of the tattoos that I have, if not all of them, it was when I was a teenager. And to me, it was not about being my authentic self. I told myself that that's what it was. But to me, it was a performance of authenticity. And that's why I do sometimes, you may see one like coming through because I do have a large piece, but other than that, you don't really see them because for me, that represented a different version of myself. And I honor my history, I honor my experiences, and so it's fine, it's okay. I have found a way to either be at peace or to love or whatever. But I know the intention behind when I got it. And when I got it, I didn't feel like I could really be myself. I feel like maybe I didn't really know myself, like it was buried somewhere deep in there. And so much of my early life, when I think about my teen years, my very early 20s, it was so much about performing and asserting freedom instead of really understanding what my heart desired to do, because on some level, either I was afraid to do it or I didn't really know what the heart wanted. I didn't feel safe to express what the heart wanted. And so because of that, I created a shell. I focused on these outward expressions, not just in terms of tattoos, but also being a handful to my poor parents. I was a very rebellious person. And I think back to all the fights I had with my mom over my clothing, over my makeup. That was a huge contentious issue. Right until my Saturn return, actually. And even to this day, there's a little part of me that feels like buttons get pushed whenever my mom says anything. And I know that that's like the rebellious little kid inside of me, but it's still there. And I'm able to see it for what it is, at least now, and decide, what matters to me. Okay, I'm having this reaction. She's sharing something, but at the end of the day, now I'm an adult. I get to decide what I'm going to wear and why I'm wearing it, and that's okay. And to see it differently as well, to see the intention differently as well, has been a way in which to affirm the love that I have with my mom. So having said that, and the reason I share all that is because I understand that freedom looks different to different people. It is something that is deeply personal. And it is not about performance, it is about intention. And only you can know the true intention. No one else can judge that. And with a sky like this, boy, are we going to be seeing a lot of people trying to understand what freedom means to them. And not everybody necessarily may access the higher, pure intent, come from that place of self-knowledge. But those of us who can, should. Because then we make it more likely that others will. We make it more likely that we won't have people who get caught up in the performance of freedom rather than authentic freedom and whatever that may mean for them. We make sure that we are aligning freedom with love and wisdom for self and for others. And in that way, other ways of expressing freedom that can actually be quite destructive because they're not coming from a place of self-knowledge, that is something that can be tempered because of our own commitment to authenticity that is rooted in love and wisdom. If it's rooted in love and wisdom, it is right. If it's not rooted in love and wisdom, then maybe not so good or maybe harmful. And harmful, not just in terms of others, but to ourselves. I think about how I used to feel during that time in my late teens, in my early 20s. You couldn't pay me to go back. It was an existence that I wouldn't want for anybody. I love getting older. I'll tell you, that's one of the greatest freedoms is getting older because you kind of rest into yourself more fully. And it's interesting because Uranus as a planet is symbolic of second childhood, like the retirement years is sometimes reflected in the planet Uranus. And so, yes, we may be inspired in some way to consider and to elevate our understanding of what it means to be our most authentic self. And when is it mainly that people allow themselves the permission to be their most authentic self? Is normally when they retire. Now, I cannot wait that long, and I did not, and I would not wait that long. Okay, so if all of that wasn't enough, we've also got a very powerful new moon, this very potent, intense new moon. And that makes me take an inhale because there is a new moon in the sign of Capricorn, but it is happening conjunct Pluto, hand in hand with Pluto. And it is sextile Neptune to a certain extent as well. Now, in this case, I feel like Neptune is adding to the energy and the potency of the new moon energy. But the dominant characteristic really is a new moon in Capricorn conjunct Pluto. That can go in all kinds of ways, but what I can say is that a lot of us are going to be feeling things very, very deeply. A lot of us are going to be asked to focus our energies. And with Pluto, if Pluto isn't tapped into consciously, it can lend itself to skewed emotional perspectives. In order to avoid that, the way that we avoid that is to ask ourselves, what do our emotions mean? Why do we feel what we feel? How can I channel this energy consciously? Once you have that split second where you're able to ask yourself the question, you've already elevated your Pluto. You've already invited it to access higher frequencies. All planets, all expressions, all signs have their more enlightened side and have their side that can represent an energy that is not enlightened at all, that is unconscious, that can be destructive. Every single one of the planets. Just like there is a sacred masculine, there's a toxic masculine. There's a sacred feminine, there's a toxic feminine. In the same way, there's a enlightened Pluto, a force of transformation in our own lives and the lives of others. Being able to really understand what's going on at the core, at the root, to be able to address the root cause, to get right to the heart of a person and facilitate transformation on that level. That is a transformation that lasts, whether it's within yourself or in others or in societies. But then, of course, there are ways to access Pluto that can be manipulative, that can be overbearing, that can be cruel. Pluto can be associated with cruelty, sometimes needless cruelty, lower frequencies like jealousy and envy. And so in order to avoid that, we have to channel this energy consciously, decide what's worth focusing on. What are we going to hold at our core and have that power us forward, have that carry us forward? That is the invitation of Pluto, the divine invitation of Pluto. And with this new moon, we will get another look. In the dark of the moon, we get a more profound look. But it is with the new moon that we get to decide how we are going to use this very powerful, very potent, very important energy. Because if we channel it wisely, we are a force of transformation in a way that can change really the world. And when we transform ourselves, and I think this is why so many spiritual teachers have said again and again, be the change you wish to see in the world. In one way or another, we see this message coming through again and again. Because there is this understanding that if you want to move through the world and experience greater love, you have to focus on love within you. One of the very wise things I ever heard from Eckhart Tolle was, give what you think the universe is withholding from you. And so if you would like the universe and others to be more generous with you, focus on giving. Be generous with others. If you would like the world to be more patient with you, more calm with you, give that to others. Be patient to others. Be more calm with others. If you want more material things, give away material things. That's a great way to create more prosperity as well. But it has to, of course, come from the place of having so much that you can't help but give it. It's a great way to create really great karma for yourself as well, really great energy. But to create that great energy, it isn't about aligning with it in terms of just focusing on energy, but about actually giving what it is that you want. It's very powerful practice, very powerful spiritual practice. And so how are we going to understand power, true power, authentic power? I see that written all over this week with all the different things that are happening. Pluto is authenticity. Uranus is the authentic self as well. Pluto invites us to find the authentic self beyond the pain. Uranus invites us to cultivate and be the authentic self beyond the performance, beyond the fear. And so elsewhere this week, along with that very powerful Capricorn new moon, without a doubt, Capricorn is power structures. We are going to see some of that awareness transpire now. People who want to make meaningful change from the inside out to power structures. But of course, there are other ways that power can be applied that maybe isn't as enlightened. So we have to decide to approach this energy in a more enlightened way. At the beginning of the week, we do have Jupiter meeting Mercury in the sky. And this is an important energy because it is going to be at the end of the week that Mercury will go into shadow and at the end of the month go retrograde. And Mercury will meet Jupiter a total of 3 times. Now, at the beginning of this week, mid-February and early March. This is an ongoing dance these planets are going to be engaged in. And Jupiter, of course, is expansion, but it's healing. It's an energy that can be very idealistic, that is guided by principles, by higher principles. And it is an energy that is hopeful as well. Mercury has to do with what we're talking about. So my hope is that this will encourage us to talk, right? To speak, to understand. Mercury and Jupiter are both in the sign of Aquarius, and Aquarius energy is healthy detachment. It is being able to step outside of the emotions. Speaking about my Aunt Shireen, one of the things that she constantly says, even to this day, she talks about not letting the emotions have power over you. Deciding that you're going to have healthy detachment from emotion enough so that you can learn from them. Observe your emotions, learn from your emotions. See what they're pointing to. Go deeper with them in terms of what they may be pointing to, but don't go deeper in terms of getting lost in them because you can lose yourself in what you feel if you let yourself. And so this idea of healthy detachment is one of the sacred lessons of the energy of Aquarius. And I think a lot of us are going to be invited to cultivate that in some way or another, to find words to give expression to what it is that we may be feeling, what we hold as ideals, and the determination to share it more. Aquarius energy is about sharing. Jupiter is far and wide, to share that energy far and wide, to be determined to use our perspective, our ideas, our voices to affirm love and wisdom in the world. Well, this is a phenomenal way to tap into this energy because we need more of those voices now, because the other stuff, it's addictive. It has a pull, even if we know it isn't good for us. There's something about it that appeals to the lower vibrations, and that is the default. There's a reason why they call it enlightenment, right? They call mind, the period, the age of Aquarius, the discovery of Uranus. There's a reason why they called it the age of enlightenment. It's because it elevated beyond the emotions. It moved towards mind and idea and healthy detachment. And where we can exercise healthy detachment, we'll be able to find the words that can make all the difference in our lives and in the lives of others. Mercury will square Uranus on Tuesday. And so that can bring with it new ideas that seem really out there. Interesting forms of communication can find us as well. Just be wary of things like the Freudian slip with that energy. Very innocently, we may say something and afterwards realize that, wow, we really revealed something about our truest self in what we said. And sometimes that works well, sometimes maybe not so much. With the square, it may leave us with mixed feelings. Oh, I wish I hadn't said that. I can't believe that just came out. I blurted it out. But that's okay. Whatever comes forward, allow yourself to contemplate what deeper truth it may reveal so that you can decide whether or not it works for you. And then we have our saving grace on Thursday, and that is going to be Venus trine Uranus. Now, as I said, the new moon is on Wednesday. The conjunction between the Sun and Pluto perfect on Thursday, but I consider them part of one energy because it's the new moon and Pluto and the Sun all together. So it is essentially like extending that intensity of the new moon into Thursday. But then we have this wonderful energy, this respite, if you will, the saving grace of Venus trine Uranus. This is so exciting. This is romantic surprises. This is the spontaneous opportunity to have fun. Now, Venus is in Capricorn, so that isn't necessarily the most fun vibration because it's a little bit more ambitious than that. But I do think that this energy can help us to feel a sense of connection with others, to feel a sense that we can be spontaneous, we can be in the moment, and that we can enjoy the things that we've achieved, enjoy the self-respect that we've cultivated, and where it is that we've put in the time and followed a path that allows us to move towards greater self-respect. Well, this energy can represent celebration. What I love about this week for us, well, look, for me, it's been a vulnerable horoscope, I will say. Like I said, I like not talking about myself. It is wonderful. It gets me out of the way, including my ego out of the way. And I find it more rewarding. But I did want to share because I understand is really what I wanted to say. I understand. There's a lot of very intense emotions right now. There's fear, there's frustration, there's sadness, there's uncertainty, yes. But there is also truth that you can find within. There is also awareness. There is also a healthy way of expressing our individuality, our authenticity. And it is with the intention of adamantly committing to principles of love and wisdom that we can ensure that this week and beyond manifests for the highest good of all concerned. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys, and to prove it to you, here are some of my recent favorite comments. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. I'm always open to hearing what you have to say, having a conversation. Now, sometimes I don't necessarily conversate in the comments because a lot of comments are left on different videos, but I do take note and I appreciate the different perspectives that people do bring. And just the love that you give as well in the comments, all of it, it means so much to me. Thank you. And of course, now, Superstar, you can get it for as low as just $3 a month. Can you believe it? Choose your membership rate is in full effect. Lots of people have been utilizing that, and thank you for your trust. Thank you for seeing me as part of your sacred journey. But yes, now Superstar, you choose your membership rate and it starts at just $3 a month, and that gets you access to each horoscope for all the signs for the week. So that is access to the weekly videoscopes. If you want unlimited access to all the special horoscopes for all the signs, that's just $10 a month. And your trust supports this channel and so much more. And for that, I'm so grateful, but also the value that I hope that my work adds means so much to me as well. I really believe, and especially in these times, I really believe that my weekly horoscopes can help people. And that was part of the motivation to reduce the price so much. But I am very, very happy to see how many people now are able to actually watch the horoscopes each and every week and the wonderful feedback they get. So thank you for that. And I hope that they continue to inspire you and bring a reminder of love and wisdom and hope in your life each and every week. Synchronicity University is in full effect. Now, we do have a class coming up that's going to start in February, and that is with the great Michael Barwick, my very dear friend. And this is going to be a class on fixed stars, understanding fixed stars. And it is so thorough. I think we're going to look at a total of 28 fixed stars, understand how to interpret them. Well, Choose Your Tuition Rate is on until the end of the month for Michael Barwick's class. And with Choose Your Tuition Rate, you pay as low as just $5 a class, which is unheard of for a class on the fixed stars. I'm very excited about all the people who've already signed up. I'm looking forward to meeting you all in class, learning from Michael along with you. And I think it's going to be very fun and very lively. And you know Michael Barwick because he was part of the very first speaker series and so many of you loved him. So we're just so grateful to have him back. I asked him if it was okay to extend that Choose Your Tuition Rate to the end of the month, and he agreed. And so really thank you so much to him. That makes the class so much more accessible to more people out there, and a limited amount of scholarships are available as well. So to learn more about Michael Barwick's class on fixed stars, starting in about a month, links are in the description below, or go to synchronicityuniversity.com. My own classes are in full effect at this time. Earlier today, we had a class on the second house in astrology, part 1, which was the signs on the cusps. And boy, that class went over 3 hours. So that was a whole lot of fun interacting with everybody. It's the most popular series that I've had so far. We have 400 people signed up, just over 400 people signed up for this series. And so it made for a very lively chat and a lot of fun to interact with all of you guys. And so next week we're going to do the second house part 2. Now, initially I had planned to do rulers and tenants. So I'd planned to do like planets in the second house and ruling planets of the second house, looking at where they are in the chart. But I think it might end up being too much. Just going through the signs took over 3 hours. So I think I may end up dividing that class into 2 parts. So if you are part of Synchronicity University winter session, be on the lookout for that. I will let you guys know. But we have that bonus class sort of coming up, so don't worry, you'll get access to it. If you sign up for the second house class, you'll get access to both classes. And you can sign up. You can still sign up by clicking on the link below. We have 2 classes on the second house, which will actually become 3. We have a class on the 8th house, money, power, respect. We have a class on series in the astrology chart, signs and houses, this session over the course of this winter. And we also have astrology and the chakras. So much fun astrology learning taking place at synchronicityuniversity.com. Join me in class, link in the description below. And the January 2021 speaker series of Synchronicity University is in full effect now. We had a wonderful class with Alex Trenoweth earlier this week. Coming up this week, we are going to have the amazing Candace April. I have just seen Candace bloom over the last few years. She is a brilliant tarot reader, much followed tarot reader, and astrologer as well. And she's going to be talking about Saturn square Uranus and what that transit means coming up, this very big transit that's going to define 2021. Well, she'll be discussing it with us. And so you can join that class. Click on the link in the description below, synchronicityuniversity.com. Other classes coming up in this session include Patricia Walsh, who's going to be teaching about Pluto generations, helping you to understand Pluto generations. The amazing Aquila Moon is going to be talking about Venus and Vesta, love and money in the astrology chart. And then we are going to have our last class celebrating Tibetan New Year's Eve with the one and only renowned astrologer, big dog astrologer, Michael Lutin. So you can go to synchronicityuniversity.com, sign up for the individual classes, join us online, and I look forward to meeting you in class. Check out my amazing friend, Katie Weber, world-renowned Feng Shui expert. Every year she puts out this must-have guide that I always get each and every year. I pay for this myself because I love it so much. It's called the Success Pack, and her latest Success Pack for the Year of the Ox success pack for the Year of the Ox is out now. And it is brilliant. And in it, she gives you this very thorough understanding of the energies ahead, a step-by-step guide to understanding how to navigate the energies, how to align your home and your life with heaven is how she describes it. And it includes everything from like a lucky color for your purse and for your wallet, and what kind of clothing can be especially lucky. I mean, I just love it. I think that she's so brilliant and she really knows her stuff. It was 2014 when I first discovered Katie Weber online, and I got some of the free products that she offers, and I loved it so much that I booked a consultation with her. And that consultation was so helpful. It helped me so much in terms of creating more of what I wanted in life. And that was so helpful to me. But then a few years later, and after this time, I'd like sort of become her client, but also started moving towards friendship. I remember I was having some things coming up, and I contacted her, and she just knew what was happening in the house. I said, this is going on. And she said, okay, this must be happening with your front door. This must be going on here. Check out this sector of your house. Like, she just really knew her stuff, and she impressed me so much. And that really helped me to understand how quickly things can change, energies can change when you align yourself, when you put yourself in harmony with the celestial energies of a given period. And I find her advice invaluable. And so if it is that you are so inspired, click on the link in the description below. You can learn all about it. She has a very thorough page that tells you exactly what you're going to get and gives you great insights in and of itself. And then if you are so inspired, yes, have a look. Check out the Success Pack from Katie Weber, link in the description below. I have books. Check out my books. Wherever it is that books are sold, you can get my books. My very first book is called Astrology Realized. Now, this gives you a foundational understanding, not only of the historical and philosophical development of astrology, but also it gives you an understanding of how to start reading birth charts. So it's a really great beginner's guide. It's also great to affirm foundations and to understand the historical and philosophical development that got us to where we are today in terms of astrology. And my second book was called The Body and the Cosmos. It's right there. And The Body and the Cosmos is me taking the ideas of Plato that he shared in his work Timaeus and applying it to an astrological sky, an astrological zodiac. It includes meditations for each and every sign. And my third book is called Prayers to the Sky. This is like astrological magic light. It gives you an introduction and understanding and connecting and cultivating a relationship with the astrological planets so that you can get to know them more as parts of you. And finally, The Universe is Wise and Loving. This is on the nodes of the moon, and we go through each of the signs, we go through each of the houses, and we look at planets in aspect to the nodes as well. So to understand these very meaningful karmic points, I wrote a whole book about it, and I hope that you love it. And links to all my books are in the description below. And finally, you can get my take on your unique birth chart by checking out my partnership with Cosmogram. Cosmogram is amazing. I've loved working with them, and it is this written report that you can have within hours of entering your birth data on their website. They email it to you, and it's yours to enjoy forever. Each one of those sections I wrote. It took a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and I'm so glad that it is appreciated and loved by so many people. I know that for me, getting my very first printed astrology chart reading really changed my life. I was a teenager. My Aunt Shireen, it's the third time I've talked about her today. She gave it to me as a gift. And that took me from reading books about sun signs, and that launched me in a direction where I am today. And so I think that these written reports can be very powerful, but this is where I take the different planetary combinations in your chart and you get my description of them. And you can actually get a sample on the Cosmogram website so you know exactly what it is that you're going to get. So if you'd like to learn more, click on the link in the description below. And thank you. Thank you so much for navigating this time with me and for your trust. And I am always wanting to be better. I'm always wanting to understand how to best use astrology to affirm love and wisdom in the world. That is always my intention. And I'm always trying to figure out and understand how to best do that. And so I've been learning as I go along, right along with you. And my hope is that as many of you have been with me on this journey and grown with me on this journey, that we continue to do so as we navigate this very important year of 2021 together. Well, thank you again for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.